And yet Iran has always seemed to be the one exception to that rule. And the only, well, as far as the Middle East is concerned. But look at every other exception to that rule. China and Russia. So, in other words, countries in which we know we can't go toe to toe with you. And you want to know how we know, even to this day, that we can't go toe to toe with Iran? Because they're like, we would rather risk starting a nuclear winter than to put boots on ground. They would rather start a nuclear war than to put boots on ground, because that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back, ladies and gentlemen.
Bro, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, Fox News, they might as well be Mossad news network. Like, as a whole, they're literally coordinating talking points. Like, if you was to watch the CNN segment on this, MSNBC segment, there is very little difference. Fox News, they straight up saying, Jesse Waters said that the Trump administration is considering using a nuke in Iran. I have a Hotspot video coming out today where I explain how Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Heck said they will push to the side because Donald Trump is getting his information and getting his advice on Iran from Fox News of all places. So Fox News is straight up convincing Donald Trump to wage war.
Now he cares about Tulsi Gabbard's opinion, because when Tulsi said that they didn't have a nuke, he was like, I don't care what she says. But now he cares about her opinion.
Yeah, I should have had the receipt saved, but I'm gonna show you guys. This is why I did my hotspot video on today. Look, I'm gonna show you this. I kind of went out of order. God damn it, Rolling Stones. But it says Fox News. Let me turn this off. Fox News is demanding war with Iran, and Donald Trump is listening. So for all the delusional MAGA bros, all the dumbasses that we was warning, Nico, that thought MAGA was a populist movement, MAGA was never about Tucker Carlson politics. It was never about Dave Smith politics. It was always about Laura Loomer's politics. It was all about Sean Hannity. Donald Trump is getting his direct foreign policy from Sean Hannity right now. Right. So anyway, let me get back to what I really about. I want David to respond to this, and I want you guys to respond to this headline. The point I was making is the media is horrible right now. Now look at this headline. I want David to respond and Nico to respond, because you have the entirety, including the Democrat Party. We'll get to them soon, trust me, that is supporting this war against Iran because they want to check China more than anything else, because they see Iran selling a large amount of oil to China. So their mindset is, if we can take out Iran and weaken Iran, have a regime change, that will be another way to take out China. So let me read the headline. I want you guys to respond. We start with David, and then we go Nico. A U.S. attack on Iran will show the limits of China's power. China, which depends on Iran for oil, and to counter American influence, has a lot to lose from a wider war. But there's not much it can do about it. I got a lot to say on this. I want to get before I chime in, David, Nico, do you guys have any thoughts?
Go ahead, David. Go ahead real quick.
I see two things here. First of all, there's an attempt to frame this as though this is a war with Iran is not like potentially a world-ending event in and of itself, which it is, but that it's sort of like it's an experiment to gauge what a war would to gauge the power of Chinese, of the strength of the Chinese military. And for me, the second and more important thing here is that this is clearly setting up something that I've been saying for a long time, which is that the end game ultimately is China. Yes. The end game of all of this, the empire's end game, is to neutralize China, because China is occupying the position now that the Soviet Union once occupied as the empire's primary opposition, but is also much stronger than the Soviet Union ever was, even at its peak.
And
so
they're more clicked up. They got more allies. They have more allies, whether by hook or by crook. Yeah. Like, they have allies that are choosing to be allies, but they also have so many countries in their pocket that depend on China that it makes China a problem that Soviet Union couldn't be.
And then even in terms of the sheer industrial capacity of China, it's what the Soviet Union, even at its peak, could never dream of being. The Chinese literally make everything. The Chinese are a higher level of technological advancement than the US. Even the Soviet Union at its peak couldn't say that. So the empire clearly sees China as its primary threat. So ultimately, whether it's Iran, whether it's Syria, whether it's even Russia, the end goal of all of this is to encircle China. And I would think it'd be pretty obvious to anyone who has a functioning pair of eyes that all these countries I've just mentioned, with the exception of Syria, are all nuclear states or close to being nuclear states. So it's a suicidal idea to try to engage them in a direct war between nuclear powers. But again, I guess the people who actually make these decisions, maybe we give them too much credit sometimes. Maybe they're just not as sane as you think they are.
They're not saying at all. I mean, I feel like we give them too much credit all the time. Like that interview with Ted Cruz, just as like a random thought, like did he actually sit down? Because y'all know, we know the process before they agree to do something like that. And someone sat down with Ted Cruz and they had a production meeting across a cost benefit analysis, y'all. And they said, yeah, this would be a genius idea. We're going to definitely come out looking better. And I can't imagine in what fucking world, did you think that you were going to come out looking better? I mean, by the end of the interview, he accidentally revealing the fact that his dad actually fought on behalf of the Communist Revolution. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, it did not go well. But like, it did not go well. I mean, not only did it not go well, but we learned a lot about you, Ted. So there's that. But as far as I 100% agree, though, and the end game has to be China because so obviously economically speaking, but there's a similar situation in China that Iran has, which is the U.S. really does not know how capable China is militarily. They know about their technology. They know they have billions of people. They know about, but it's, you want to see, and because they don't know. They don't really know. You can know, but you cannot. It's just like with Iran. I always tell people, like, we're not going to directly fight with Iran. They will never directly fight with Iran. That's why we sent Iraq first. And this time, what do we do? We're sending Israel. They're sending everybody and everything at them except for themselves. Because like we got to see. And even at this moment, it's like David said, they busting their ass with 30-year-old missiles. So we still don't know their capabilities. Exactly. Now imagine China. China. Yo, everybody saw the Olympics. We saw the Olympics in Beijing.
You see their drone shows?
If they military is as disciplined, as efficient as that opening ceremony, it's over. You know what I'm saying? People like little things like that. Like I know I'm joking, but like little tidbits like that will let you know a lot about a society. Like you didn't hear, for example, whenever the Olympics came to Rio, or the World Cup came to Rio. Unfortunately, a lot of favelas got destroyed. There's a lot more complaints about what had to be destroyed in order for those Olympics to come here for the upper middle class to the wealthy to receive the benefits. You didn't hear about that with China.
Exactly.
It was just benefits.
Yeah.
Right?
They built entire cities.
Exactly. So now, fast forward, where China, they just tried to run a tariff war against China. Trump, everybody, I ain't forget about Liberation Day and how Liberation Day lasted for all of a week. That shit ain't coming back. Y'all feel liberated? Tariff war in a week, bro.
I've been asking MAGA, do you feel liberated right now? Do you feel liberated? Bro, MAGA is like, bro, the Civil War of MAGA has been amazing. I want to respond. There's a lot you want. I want to get back to where you're laying on, Nico. I just want to respond to this headline real quick, and I'll get back to it because there's something that's been on my mind as I say this. I'm taking a different direction because you guys already kind of laid out what my initial take was. Look at what they say here, and I'm just now thinking about this. Sorry to cut you off, Nico, but you said, look at this say here. China, I'm gonna skip the comma part, has a lot to lose from a wider war. Think about that statement. China has a lot to lose from a wider war. What does it say about your society when war benefits you? You're like, oh my God, this other country don't want to go to war because it will hurt them. The same way that Biden said, if we had a ceasefire in Gaza, it would benefit Hamas. Remember how they said if we had a ceasefire in Ukraine, that would benefit Putin? What does it say about the West that whenever peace is discussed, it's always negative against them, good for the enemies? If war always benefits you, you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy. saying stuff like, "Oh, we can't have a ceasefire in Ukraine because that would benefit Putin." That means you're the bad guy. You're clearly the problem in this situation.
Right. And it also gives you a glimpse into who really started the war, like who's the real cause. It's like because generally, who like the person who would have caused the war is the one who would have benefited the most from it. Like that's just logic. So in this particular case, a war with Iran would actually be a problem for China. First of all, and they say a wider. That's what's scary. A wider war.
Yeah,
right?
as if the United States will win a wider war. Like, what do you mean? Everyone will lose from a wider war, you dipshit.
Everybody. And there's also the assumption that that is a massive assumption that China would somehow be hurt by a wider war. I would go on a limb and say about 70% of the world would be against the US and Israel. They would be buying their arms from who? China and Russia, most likely. And even probably some from Iran itself. China's manufacturing industry would go insane. China, for some reason, they keep forgetting. While the U.S. was bullshitting and relying on oil for all of their vehicles and things like that, China has multiple electric vehicle companies. So when we're talking about something as simple as people wouldn't even think about it, a supply chain. Our oil prices went up and supply chains were hurt during the pandemic, largely because of the oil prices. China don't have that issue. China, they got as many electric vehicles and as many electric vehicle companies as they need. Like, they have all the lithium in the world. That Taiwan shit, yeah, you can go ahead and that conversation's over. Because if y'all even come near Taiwan, we busting y'all ass because now we're at war. This whole back and forth that we doing, that little cute tit for tat we be doing, that's over. We got Taiwan. If you even mention Taiwan, we busting y'all ass. Like, where does this idea come from that China would be hurt by a wider war? Only thing that would be solidified is the amount of allies that they have and how much control they actually could exert over the world's economy if at a snap of a finger. That's what would happen. And I don't think that people realize that. But if China did not have that ability, the United States wouldn't consider them as big of a threat as they do. Because even when the beef isn't with China, they still somehow try to make it about China.
Yeah.
The only thing the only thing I'd add to that is the Strait of Hormuz, which, as you know, is controlled by Iran. If there were a wider war and Iran were to close the Strait of Hormuz, which has happened before, essentially global trade as you know it grinds to a halt. Oil prices will hit $120 per barrel. Everybody is going to die, literally. This is not going to end well for anyone. Not for us in Africa, not for Europe, definitely not for Europe, not for the US as well. Nobody's going to benefit. So again, I don't know what genius is coming up with this strategy that I'm gonna shoot myself in the face to potentially hurt some enemy that I've created for myself.
And it's crazy
I don't understand it.
And it's crazy because Americans and Israelis are the last people who would accept the sacrifice to their quality of life over this war, because we all know that everyone will suffer because of this. So as you guys mentioned, the strategy doesn't even make sense, but I guess it doesn't have to. The last thing I will say on this segment, because I have two more quick segments and we can begin to wrap up. So I'm going to wrap up with this thought. As they say that peace will benefit China and how war is so great for the West, who was the one who was making peace deals in the Middle East? You had China making a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So look at the contrast there. You had the United States that's funding genocide, that is willing to drop a nuke on Iran, that is willing to start war with Iran, versus China that's making peace deals. And there are people who still U.S. flag bumping patriots and they hate China and the United States. How can you possibly view China as the bad guy in this situation?
The CCP is trapping on universities. Thank God. If the alternative is for some reason America wants to drop a nuke on Iran, even for a war they're supposedly not even a part of, yes, I'm okay with the CCP corrupting universities if they're really doing so.
I need Xi Jinping to liberate us, bro. I want to see the full thing at this point. But anyway, let me move on to the next part because I don't want to take too much of your guys' time. I'll respond to the super chat real quick. I only see a few, so I'm gonna read two super chats real quick. Thanks, Nick. Thank RBN, Revolutionary Blackout. Thank you, Tony, for the $10. I want to reply to this super chat. Thank you for the 999. Nick, it is imperative that you understand that MAGA and MAGA aren't the same. MAGA isn't interested in wars. America always end up in debt. America has gotten zero reward for anyone, including Nam. Quick question, Wandy. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate the sentiment. But who did MIGA vote for? So what you're saying is essentially the same. Do you think there's a difference between a progressive Democrat and a Democrat? Do you think that the difference between Cenk Uygur, who voted for Joe Biden, who voted for genocide, that's essentially what people like to say. And it's so mind blowing for me because they be like, Nick, don't you know that MAGA was betrayed? Who gives a fuck?
There's a difference, Nick. What they say, that's about where it stops. It's just what they say on Twitter. That's
like if you have this position, you might as well support Cenk Uygur. Like if you have this position, you might as well be a Bernie Sanders fan because Bernie Sanders is better than the average Democrat, but he's a fucking Democrat. That's the same with the Make America Healthy Again people. Because these are people like, I want to make America healthy again, but ask them if they support universal health care. So I'm not impressed with these people like you guys are. I view them as actually deeply intellectually shallow. We're going to make America healthy again. What about the poor people who need health care? No, fuck them. The fuck y'all talking about? It's not even a good movement. Like even the good parts of the movement is trash.
You know what? No, you know what's even actually crazy about the Maha movement, Nick, is that the majority of them actually did support universal health care until RFK started waffling on it. And then it was like, oh, well, I don't know, because there are a lot of problems with the healthcare. I'm like, hold up. No. That's not what y'all were saying before. Like, they're in just like a lot of their positions on Israel moved because of RFK, because they fell for that same cult of personality issue that MAGA has. Because there was a point, I remember back in the day, where I would say there were many more anti-war MAGA people. I remember whenever he attacked Syria and MAGA came after him in full force. It was like 2017, 2018. They actually came after him in full force. And I was actually surprised. I was like, wow, I expected for y'all to actually get this right. But once again, when MAGA turned into this massive economy, and largely thanks to the Democrats, which is a whole different thing, but it became a massive economy, kissing Trump's ass. They just turned into TY. It just became access journalism, access activism. They started making money from being anti-Democrat and being Trump loyalists no matter what. And once you get into that no matter what zone, which we've seen plenty of people, I literally saw somebody on Twitter post, I'm tired of people going back and forth on whether or not they support Trump. Either you support him or you don't, policies be damned. I'm like, huh? I thought you support Trump because of his policies. So it had nothing to do with his policies? You just slobbering his knob, basically? You just like his personality? Like bro, if you like personalities, like a fucking pick a celebrity to worship.
It's like blue MAGA, red MAGA. It's the same thing. That's what I've been saying. That's why I don't understand why people treat MAGA as if they're anything other than liberals. They are just fucking neoliberals. That's what the Republican Party is, a party of neoliberals. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's move on because I don't want to keep. I got two quick segments I absolutely want to do, so I don't want to keep you guys long. Speaking of who actually have influence in MAGA. So for anyone who thinks that there is a populist MAGA, that was always a myth. It's not true. The people who always have Donald Trump's ear were Jesse Waters, was Sean Hannity. You guys managed to convince yourself. That's why I don't respect these people. You convinced yourself that Donald Trump, a guy who got started in politics doing what? This motherfucker got started in politics because he would live tweet shit he saw on Fox News. Donald Trump is literally a Fox News watching boomer who got started in politics because he spread the Obama birther conspiracy theory. You guys remember?
I thought he started the conspiracy theory.
That is what got done. Before that, he was nothing other than a reality game show host. Then he did the Obama birther conspiracy, where he got from where? Fox News. Donald Trump has never, ever been this populist. He's always been a Fox News watching boomer. And then the MAGA who presented and projected themselves onto Trump, they are now surprised. Oh, I can't believe Trump betrayed us. What do you mean? He always been influenced by these people, not you. Do you guys really believe that Donald Trump is watching independent media and deep dive into Ukraine? Like that's
no. You know who was watching? I don't think it was Trump. It was Bannon. Whenever Trump would get his populist message right, I mean, Bannon even admitted at the time he stole his messaging from Bernie, and then he crafted it for conservatives. He literally admitted that. I think it was on Bill Maher or Stephen Colbert's show. I was like, that is exactly what the fuck he did, which is why you saw so many Bernie people whenever he sold us out in 2016 immediately pivot towards Trump. Because it seemed like it was easy for them. Because remember, at one point, Trump even threatened the Republicans. He said, if y'all don't fucking put a damn healthcare plan together, I'm just gonna give everybody universal healthcare. That actually happened. I was like,
Yeah,
hell?
the thing is, the point I was making though that no one should believe. I won't get to the clip though. The point that I was making that no one should ever believe this bullshit that Steve Bannon pulled. It was a great political trick. Here's the report because I want to get to this because this is the story I have in the headline. I gotta make sure I get to this. This is Jesse Waters explaining how Donald Trump is considering using tactical nuke. Now I want you guys to speak on this and get your reaction to this as well.
The guard.
After this segment, we're gonna talk about how. Because the last segment I want to do after this is how the Democrats are responding. Remember, Nico, we don't diss the Democrats at least once in the stream. We're not really talking. So that we have one more segment after this, one more quick segment on how the Democrats are responding to this. But let's respond to this first.
Guardian reported Trump was getting cold feet, worried about the effectiveness of bunker busters and not willing to use tactical nukes. But the White House tells Fox that's not true. Everything's on the table, even tactical nukes. The big question is if the United States does target Iran, what happens next? The White House isn't considering boots on the ground. Iran's 3 times the size of Texas and surrounded by mountains.
So we must stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon because they're a country full of crazy Islamists. So in response, we got to nuke them first. David, I want you to respond to Nico. You can jump in as well after that. What's your response?
So
it's crazy.
Putting aside the just craziness of that idea that somehow some people have arrogated to themselves the sort of moral necessity of using nuclear weapons, which is a fucking stupid idea to begin with. There's also the idea that you're going to nuke a country which has several strong allies, nuclear armed allies, and no one's going to nuke you back. Again, it comes back to this thing. There was a Hotspot video I made about this most recently where I talked about imperial exceptionalism, where people within the empire almost live in a state that is divorced from reality. They genuinely believe that they're special, that the rational rules of reality somehow don't apply to them. Because I would think it would be pretty common sense that Iran, even if it's not already a nuclear state, it's only not a nuclear state by choice. It very easily could be. It might well be right now. Actually, we have no way of knowing. So the idea that you're going to drop a nuke on Iran, and then there isn't going to be something earth-shifting happening in response, I don't know where that idea comes from. Because even if somehow you're able to totally paralyze Iran, which is impossible, it's just too big. But even if for the sake of argument, something you've never been able to do before, which is fight an actual war against an actual conventional military, which can and will shoot back. You're not fighting against rice farmers in Vietnam. You're not fighting against poppy farmers in Afghanistan and interior designers in Baghdad. You're fighting against actual trained soldiers, actual militaries with decades worth of military inventory. Assuming you somehow do what you've never done before, you actually defeat a proper military. I repeat, you have never done that in the past 100 years. Even the Second World War was run by Russia. It wasn't won by the US. So even if for the sake of argument, you manage to do something you have never done before, what happens afterward? Because you have the Pakistanis who have said very clearly that is a nuclear armed state. And they said if Israel drops a nuke on Iran, they're going to respond in kind because they understand very well that they will be next in line. You have Russia, which is also a close ally of Iran. You have China, which is also a close ally of Iran. You have North Korea, which is also an ally of Iran. All of these are nuclear armed states. Do you think that you're going to drop a nuke on a population for the first time since 1945, and all these countries which have nukes of their own are not going to at least consider responding in kind? And if that happens, do you understand that all of us are going to die? Literally, all of us are going to die, even those of us who are nowhere near where all of this is happening. Because all it takes for all of us to die is for 3 or 4 nukes to go off and nuclear winter to become the result, and then food production across the world becomes impossible. Within 6 months to a year, everybody dies. Except maybe you're a billionaire who has a bunker somewhere in New Zealand or something. Good for you. All of us are going to fucking die. So again, I don't know who the geniuses are who sit down in the Pentagon or wherever and come up with these ideas, these scenarios that you're gonna be like, I don't know, the Avengers or something. You're gonna execute some video game maneuver, and somehow nothing is gonna nothing's gonna ricochet towards you. Because I think even within the sort of limited conflicts that the U.S. military has fought for the past half century against people who are basically not really soldiers and against armies that don't have actual training and capacity, the U.S. military has managed to lose every single one of those conflicts, right? The US military fought against Vietnamese paddy rice farmers and lost. The US military fought against ragtag militants in somewhere in the Afghan mountains and lost. The US military fought against Iraqi civilians and lost. The US military is currently fighting against, whoever those guys are in Yemen, and they're not winning, right? They fought against fishermen in Somalia, and they ended up having their asses dragged through Mogadishu, dead. So when exactly has it ever happened that this huge military power has gone abroad in one of these adventures and done something constructive? When has it ever happened? So why would it happen now, especially when the enemy of all countries is Iran? Who comes up with these? I can't.
Yeah, we have a suicidal ruling class, and it's another thing. I don't have time to show you guys this stuff because I'll tell you, I've been obsessed with watching the war propaganda. Like I'm a political nerd, guys. And one of the most important things for the ruling class to do is to convince the populace that their military is invincible. Because if you're able to convince your population that your enemy is weak and your military is invincible, they're more likely to to support the war. Remember the beginning of the war in Ukraine where they said Russia weak, we're winning the war. Russia weak, we're winning the war. They're doing the same thing right now. Remember the first statement we did explaining how Israel getting their shit kicked in? We talk about how they're losing psychologically. Everyone who's following this war know that Israel is getting their ass handed to them. That's why the Knesset is banning footage. Meanwhile, if you was to turn on Fox News, fam, bro, I might have to do a whole solo show just to show you guys the bullshit they are telling these boomers. They say, Israel, their plan was immaculate. They have the expert military. They got Iran checkmated. Iran, their retaliation against Israel, it didn't do anything. Israel just exposed Iran as a bitch. The Iron Dome shot down every single Iranian missile. God, you think I'm exaggerating? I swear to God, I'm not. I might have to do a stream just to pull up some Fox segments to show you guys that they are convincing their followers that Israel is invincible and they cannot lose this war with Iran. And that's why the stream. And I'll pass to you, Nico. I know you want to chime in. The biggest failure of peace movements and in the left in the United States is going after military culture. Going after this mentality that the United States military is worth a damn. Because I have, ever since the beginning of my time as a citizen journalist, I've been bringing up this article that I have saved for 5 years now, 4 years now. How many times I have done segments on this, my friends? It's crucial for us to explain to our brothers and sisters that you will die if you go overseas. You will die, and you deserve it. Your dumb ass deserve it if you think you're going to go overseas and be invincible. That's why they trick people, because they think they fucking G.I. Joe. They're going to go and blow up some people who don't know how to fight. They come back at their ass beating and they have PTSD. But sorry, Nico, I know you want to chime in. Go ahead, bro.
No, you cooking. I mean, it's 100% true. I mean, as many segments as you've done on that, it's probably as many times as I've repeated, and I've been saying this for years and years and years up into this moment. I keep telling y'all, Iran is not to be fucked with.
Yeah.
And I kept explaining, I'm like, y'all have to look at the context of history. If the U.S. even thinks we have a chance to bust your ass, we will go. Even if we really don't, like David just laid out, we keep losing, but if we think we can, we will. And yet Iran has always seemed to be the one exception to that rule. And the only, well, as far as the Middle East is concerned, but look at every other exception to that rule. China and Russia. So, in other words, countries in which we know we can't go toe-to-toe with you. And you want to know how we know even to this day that we can't go toe-to-toe with Iran? Because they're like, we would rather risk starting a nuclear winter than to put boots on ground. They would rather start a nuclear war than to put boots on ground, because that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back, ladies and gentlemen. Because we've been riding this whole "we won World War II" narrative forever, and they just kind of leave out the Vietnam situation. They try to pretend like that's an exception to the rule. In Korea, the fact that Korea is North Korea and South Korea is because really North Korea kind of won. Like we bowed out. So they were able to maintain their communist country in a separate state, right? They put the DMZ there to try to make sure that North Korea's influence couldn't stretch into South Korea, but North Korea kind of won that war, or at least we didn't win it. So
you guys realize the United States was panicking so bad in Korea because they realized they couldn't win. They started kidnapping random Koreans, especially military-aged Korean men, and they would torture them to death, accusing them of working with the Revolutionary Korean Army. They would accuse them of being part of North Korea. So they kidnapped random people. They went to villages, burned them down to the ground because they accused them of being headquarters of North Korea. You know, the same thing the Mossad is doing, but the IDF is doing.
We threatened Burkina Faso and Niger and Mali after they liberated themselves from France. We kept threatening them, and and then they were like, "Yeah, get your asses out. Y'all not about to do shit." And guess what we did? Not a goddamn thing. So if we can't even keep Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger in check after the amount of colonialism they've experienced and the tumultuous history that they have, how you gonna beat Iran? And why is it that there are so many people that have been convinced that Iran is this third world nation? That is proper. That there's so many people that have consumed so much propaganda. Y'all have actually convinced yourself that somehow Iran is a third world nation, but they're also the most dominant nuclear superpower in the region, and they
had their hands all over They got fucking proxies. They got their hands all over the world. Apparently, they control the Houthis in Yemen. They control the Lebanese government.
They can assassinate the U.S. president.
Yep.
Yeah, but here's the thing: those proxies are real. That part, but that's my point. They have operated so efficiently. Like everybody remember, why did they assassinate Soleimani? Because Soleimani was getting these terrorist groups just bop, 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 bop everywhere he went. He was knocking them out. And these are the terrorist groups who are funding the United States to destabilize these regions. That's why they had to get them up out of there.
Yep.
They are officially running organizations or militia groups they're coordinating militia groups from Iran in other countries. And it's not even their Iranian military. So imagine the coordination that they would have with their own actual military. They said, oh man, Iran is 3 times the size of Texas. How many times have I mentioned the size of Iran and how we don't have a real inkling of just how big that territory is, nor do we have any idea how to navigate it, Nick? How many times have I mentioned the population of Iran? How many times have I mentioned they have intel on certain parts of Iran? But it mostly is Tehran and maybe the official ways and how the government works and their operational and administrative stuff. But I'm talking about to fight a war, you got to know the territory. Because Vietnam busted our ass because of what? We thought that weapons and the bigger guns and the bigger bombs would win a war. And like you said, rice farmers came out and said, bitch, I'm about to hide right under this grass right here.
Right.
Pop up on you. Pop, pop. Damn, they didn't even need a bomb for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now imagine Iran. And that's a real military who have been waiting, bro. Have been waiting for this war. They have been waiting for y'all. And Trump, you are such a bitch. Because you called Fox News to confirm I want the smoke, but we ain't putting boots on the ground.
And think, Nico. And think about Nico. I want to get David in here too, but think about it. Why did we get our ass whooped in Vietnam? Because these white Europeans, these European motherfuckers, were used to killing each other for hundreds of years on a flat surface. They used to fight. They were used to fighting in Europe. They used to have these wars where the armies used to look at each other. They used to wave their flags. It was fucking the dumbest way to fight war ever. That's why that's why France kept losing to Russia. France was whooping everyone's ass. Then they kept fighting Russia. They keep losing because Europe, they convinced themselves that they had the best militaries in the world, right? Because they were so used to fight on these flat surfaces. Then they went to Vietnam. And what is Vietnam? Vietnam is nothing like Europe. Vietnam is at least it used to be full of lush jungles. And Vietnamese fighters, they used to have ambushes. They used to have these Vietnamese traps that are famous. So what did the West do? Because the West was used to fighting war in one linear way, they accused them of cheating. Oh, you guys are fucking cheating. You guys are setting up fucking ambushes and traps. Don't you know that we have a rule? We gotta have honor. You stand there with your army. You have your flag. That is not how anyone else in the world wages war. So they went to Vietnam, got their ass because they were fighting guerrilla warfare fighters. They're not used to fighting. So what did the West do? They committed the largest act of eco-genocide in human history, where they burned down the lush forest. I saw someone break down the forest of Vietnam.
And poisoned the water.
David, do you want to talk? Do you want what was that?
I was just mentioning that they also poisoned Vietnam's water supply.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Agent Orange.
Yeah. What guys? If you the people who if you like one of the people that feel bad for Vietnamese troops, you have no idea what they did there, guys. You have no idea what the United States have done to Vietnam. The forest that Vietnam had was a unique global wonder of the world. It was a unique forest with unique wildlife, very lush, produces a ton of trees, wildlife, like a very unique ecosystem, like one of the biggest forests ever. And the United States napalmed and destroyed all of it. Why? Because they couldn't defeat them. They had to see them. They was getting frustrated because they was hiding in trees and stuff. The overall point I am making, the West is used to waging war in one uniform, predictable way, which led to the losses over and over and over again. Now we're in an era where not only are you still unable to fight these wars, like, let me get to this point, because this comment here mentions Afghanistan, caves, and mountains. So what happened when the West went to Afghanistan? I almost forgot this point. They went to Afghanistan, they saw the caves and mountains. The Taliban kept fucking ambushing them using the mountains as an advantage. So then what do? They accuse them of cheating. That's what they always do when they look, oh, you cheating, using the mountains and caves to your advantage. No, not everyone fight wars like you guys do. And that's why you guys consistently getting humbled.